Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Labour backs a general election because we want this country to be rid of this reckless and destructive Conservative government. A government that has caused more of our children to be living in poverty, more pensioners to be in poverty, and more people to be in work poverty. More families without a home to call their own, and more people sleeping rough on our streets. A government that has cut and sold off so much of our important public services. No, I won't give way. That government which created the vicious, hostile environment which saw our own citizens deported from this country. It is time for real change. And I've said consistently, when no deal is off the table, we will back an election. Today, after much denial and much bluster by the Prime Minister, that deal is officially off the table. So this country can vote for the government that it deserves. One... Yes.
I thank my right honourable friend, and I shall be voting against an early election today, and encourage as many of my colleagues as possible to defy the threats and blandishments to do so, because the reality is that the uncertainty of an outcome of a general election certainly most certainly does not take no deal off the table.
I hope my friend will join in this campaign to defeat this government, to bring in a government that will end injustice, poverty and inequality in this country. That is what I joined the Labour Party for all those years ago, and that I'll be very proud to take as our message to the people of this country, and to give our public services the funding they need and end the threat of privatisation that hangs over so many public service workers, and stop the grotesque poverty and inequality in our country. Rebuilding an economy in every region and every nation of this country. Tackle the climate emergency with a Green New Deal, a green industrial revolution that will bring good quality jobs to many areas of the country that have been denied them by this government and their Liberal Democrat accomplices during the coalition years. And after 3 years of Conservative failure, get Brexit sorted by, and we're the only party doing it, say give the people a final say on what happens over Brexit. We will now launch the most ambitious radical campaign for real change in this country. And I look forward to campaigning in a general election all over the country, including in Uxbridge, if the Prime Minister is still the Conservative candidate there at that time. Mr. Speaker.
I'm extremely grateful. I'm extremely grateful to the Leader of the Opposition for giving way. Can I ask him that in the upcoming election we are about to have, front and centre will be the right of the Scottish people to choose their own future. If the Scottish National Party win a majority of seats in Scotland, would he respect that result?
I'm looking forward to campaigning all over Scotland to support Labour candidates to be elected in Scotland. Indeed, I was there last weekend, and the enthusiasm of Scottish Labour to get out there and campaign is palpable all over. And I'm delighted to support Scottish Labour in their campaign to bring £70 billion of public investment into Scotland under a Labour government, something the SNP cannot offer.
I thank my right honourable friend for giving way, and I look forward to campaigning with him in Scotland in the upcoming election. But as he will know, one of the crucial things in this election is going to be turnout and ensuring we can get as many people out and using their votes as possible. In Scotland especially, it's very dark, it's very cold. Would he support the idea to have a polling day as a public holiday to ensure maximum turnout?
I thank my friend for that intervention and compliment her on her work. And I agree with her that a public holiday on election day would actually be a very good idea, because it does mean that everyone could then get along to vote without the problems of being at work at that time. It's something that has been discussed before, and I don't know all the amendments that are coming up later on this afternoon, Mr. Speaker, but if that one is included, that would be very welcome indeed. Yes.
I thank my right honourable friend for giving way, and he will know, and I raised this yesterday, I've tabled a cross-party amendment supported by many Labour colleagues for votes at 16 at the table. And would he agree with me? The Prime Minister talks a lot about the United Kingdom. In Wales and in Scotland, 16-year-olds now have the right to vote in elections and in referenda, and that should be afforded to all the United Kingdom 16-year-olds.
I thank my friend for that intervention. I'm coming on to that in a moment, but I absolutely do agree with him that all 16-year-olds should have the right to vote, because it seems to me fundamental to our democracy. It's young people's future, after all, that we'll be debating in this election. I thank him for his intervention and the work he's done on bringing about parliamentary scrutiny to this whole process. Mr. Speaker, the House has amended the programme motion. And it amended the programme motion, I think, in a very helpful way, which empowers this chamber, the House of Commons, to amend this legislation. But I think we should just reflect for a moment. The Prime Minister was actually trying to stifle parliamentary democracy. An almost unprecedented edict that only the government could amend its own legislation, which presumably they wrote last night. So the idea of amending today what they wrote last night suggests they have a problem over memory loss, perhaps over an item or something. I don't know what it is. And so I'm pleased that those amendments are going to be debated today. No, I won't give way. And what it does, Mr. Speaker, is sums up in a couple of words the undemocratic and authoritarian instincts of this government and this Prime Minister in their relation to Parliament. So I want to put on record my thanks to my friend, the member for Walthamstow, for her persistence in tabling that amendment last night, which means that the House will have an opportunity to debate a number of very serious amendments today. And we will be seeking to expand the franchise in the December election. That means supporting votes at 16, as is the case now for Scottish Parliament and Welsh Assembly elections. And I think it also means that we support the rights of EU citizens with settled status to vote in elections in this country. After all, we do recognise their contribution to our society. We do give them votes in local elections. It seems to me only logical. Since they've made their future in this country, in our society, they should have a right to vote on their future as well. And I look forward to supporting those amendments later on today.
Thank the honourable gentleman, and I look forward to getting out on the campaign trail and smashing the Conservatives at the ballot box and returning more Labour colleagues here. I'm particularly pleased about what he's just said around EU settled status here. We already allow Commonwealth citizens to vote in our elections, and I want to ask him if he will make sure that we try and ensure all EU citizens who are settled here get to vote as well.
Yes, my friend is right that for permanently, Commonwealth citizens have had the right to vote in British elections, and that's absolutely right. And most Commonwealth countries, so far as I know, reciprocate on that. And the relationship with Ireland means that all Irish nationals have an automatic right to vote in UK elections, and vice versa. No, I won't give way. And so it seems to me, no, I won't. It seems to me, I've already reminded you that I wasn't going to give way, so I say it again, no.
Order. The right honourable gentleman should resume his seat. He's been in the House since 2001, so he's familiar with the parliamentary etiquette, which stipulates quite clearly that when somebody who has the floor is not giving way, the right honourable gentleman accepts the verdict. He doesn't have a right to intervene, and he ought to have learned that by now. Jeremy Corbyn.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And so we just make that point that we want any election to involve as many people as possible. It is meant to be a big exercise in democracy, and I hope the amendments. I've already reminded reminded you I wasn't going to give way, so I say for the fourth time, no. That in that election, everyone should have the right to participate in it. It's their future and this country's future that is at stake. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister has failed in his promise to be out of the European Union, do or die, on the 31st of October. But it may be that date Parliament dissolves and therefore will mark the end of his tenure in office. So, Mr. Speaker, whatever date the House decides the election will be, I'm ready for it, we're ready for it, because we want to be able to say to the people of this country, there is an alternative to austerity, there is an alternative to inequality, there is an alternative to sweetheart trade deals with Donald Trump, there is an alternative of a government that invests in all parts of the country, and a government that's determined to end injustice in our society, and a government that's determined to give our young people a sense of hope in their society rather than the prospects of indebtedness and insecure employment in the future, which is sadly all the Conservative government and their coalition with the Lib Dems ever brought them. I'm very ready to go out there and give that message in any election whenever it comes.